All right, traders, here we go. Watch this video for Monday, May 7th. You can see the SPY held the 200-day again, kind of right back near the middle of the range it's been in for the past couple months. But a really strong bounce, and that's good to see. This 200-day has really, kind of been support. So actually, and I said this on Friday in chat, if you weren't there, I'm pretty optimistic going into next week. But I have a few caveats to that. That I want to share with you now because we're starting to see some of the low price, low float stocks make big moves, and I love a proper setup in those, right? Because as you guys know, there's big money to be made in those. But here's a couple warning symbols, if you will, that we're starting to see. Some goofy groups just pile into stuff. Oh, here's the next one, or no setup at all, or hey, it showed up on a scanner, and so I'm going to jump in, and these guys, teaching people to chase, which, as you know, I feel is reprehensible. But we are starting to see some of that, and so, I'm going to, as you know, we only call stuff that gives a proper morning setup. Jumping in at the open or jumping in because it lit up an alleged scanner is never a real entry, right? So there's guys out there bragging about making a killing on this. BLIN is one example. Look at that. That's straight out of our pump and dump webinar. LENS, same thing. Somebody jumped in this at the open, and look at that nasty reversal. You know how many people get burned on these? So, as you know, we only trade stuff in chat with a proper intraday setup. And neither one of these were any kind of a setup. So we are seeing that. So we want to be aware and work together as a team and chat and make sure that we're not, seeing volume just from some, watch my manners here, right? Just from some guy allegedly teaching people to trade by teaching them to chase. All right, that's as politely as I can put it. The beauty of what we do, though, is that jumping in at the open or chasing volume is never a setup, right? Those are never setups. So as long as you can exercise personal restraint and make sure that you don't succumb to FOMO, you should never be in any of these things, right? Because that's not proper setup. So just beware, though, because we're seeing that out there, and that's the reason I'm pointing it out. What I'm watching for Monday, RVLT kind of had this pop through 4 on decent volume and kind of reversed, and now it's curling back up. So I really like it. Maybe through 4 on Monday, or maybe through Friday's high at 407. We'll have to see how it sets up, if it sets up at all. But it's certainly worth watching. Had a nice volume spike. It is worth noting that this volume spike the other day, which is 4 days ago. See this big spike here? Still less than 1 million shares. So this thing generally a pretty thin stock. So who knows if it'll even give any kind of a proper setup. CHFS had this huge spike back here and has done not much ever since. You've got a couple little spikes, but you did have a little extra volume on Thursday, and it topped out at 375, and then on Friday, topped out at 375. Again, a little bit of extra volume. So this is certainly interesting to me over 375. Then maybe a seller shows up that we can take out at the whole number 4. So, this actually looks pretty decent. Pretty nice support the whole previous month, kind of right below this area. So anyway, we'll keep our eyes on that one. Sears Holdings, SHLD. I'm not in love with it, but a little bit of extra volume on Friday. And I don't know, you kind of picture a little wedge pattern here that it's trying to break out of. I'm not a big fan of that one, but we're going to watch it. Bitcoin actually came very close to taking out 10,000 this weekend, but last I checked, it kind of rolled over, but it's still pretty strong, relatively speaking, for what Bitcoin's been doing for the past couple months. And FTFT is one of the former, what they called cryptos, whether it is or not, but it's one of them that ran with Bitcoin. And we've also seen a big spike in some Chinese stocks lately. So this one falls into both groups. And you have nice support below that it tried to break out of on Thursday, hit 240. Friday hit 239. So this one actually looks good over the 2-day high also. See this nice spike back here all the way to over 350. So FTFT can move and certainly worth watching. Again, I would point out on Friday it only traded 74,000 shares. So it's kind of like nobody's watching this thing, but I like the chart setup. So if Bitcoin runs or Chinese stocks or both, this is a great candidate to get long over 240. But there's a couple caveats there. YRCW gapped up on Thursday, popped all the way to 1077 before settling in kind of right around the whole number 10. I closed at 999, and then on Friday hit a high of 998. So this might be a nice whole number inflection point trade through 10. It's holding the gap up fairly well. Let's keep our eyes on that through 10. VVUS, generally don't trade the sub dollars. I say that every time I put one of these on watch, but you did have this spike on VVUS back here to 60 cents. Big volume day last week. I guess this would have been, Tuesday? That went to 58 cents, so just below 60. And you've had like 3 days in a row that it topped out right around 55. So I like this over 55 because then 1, 2 potential catalysts and maybe a move to the 200-day. So this one's kind of interesting for one of the sub-dollar plays. I typed that one wrong. UAVS is what I meant to type there. Really beaten up stock. You can see a reverse split back here, so it's a low float. There's nothing pretty about this chart other than it's so beaten up and seems to have found support and got a little bit of volume on Friday that, calling kind of this recent 5-day low, maybe a potential chart low for it. It might be up from here, a little bit of extra volume on Friday. So it's not a pretty chart, but might catch some short covering next week, so we'll watch it. BSPM got a big spike all the way to through 4, but it settled in at the end of the day at 287, so well off its highs. But I do like the volume, kind of a former high flyer. I wish it had closed closer to its highs, but we'll still watch it. Not in love with that one. And then RNN, nice breakout on Friday and closed pretty strong. So we'll see if we can catch a follow-through day in that. You know what? I'm going to leave it at that. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see everybody in chat on Monday. All right? Have a good one.